Hi, and welcome to this eSeller webinar on growing your business one parcel at a time in conjunction with My Hermes. Today we'll be hearing from Eoin Kenneally, who's head of e-commerce at My Hermes, who's going to talk us through how to grow your business one parcel at a time. We'll also be hearing from Rob Duffin, who's the founder, main and only man at the Sheffield Mug Company, who's got some real interesting insight into to sort of how you do this as a small business. So that's something to listen out for. So without further ado, I shall hand you over to Eoin, who's head of e-commerce at My Hermes.
Thank you very much, everybody, for attending. I hope you enjoy growing your business one parcel at a time. I think we wanted to kick off really with talking about just briefly some of the core elements of the business, but we'll run through these quite quickly. One of the big ones here is that we've met with many SMEs is trying to decide what does growth mean for you as a business. Is it ticking over at a really nice rate, or is it accelerating off and having a really humongous business in a couple of years' time and really progressing at a huge rate, a very quick rate, sorry. So for that, we just thought, brief analogy, just increasing in size, jumping up and down, and then getting to a point where you have really good sustainable growth. So much like really good examples of people like Boohoo, who came from nowhere really in the fashion industry and took off with humongous amounts of growth just on the back of really good brand awareness and size. But I think it's really important as a business to know what's good for you and really what kind of growth you want. So some of the people who do grow a business do want to just keep it nice and small. And so why does your company have to change? And if it is to get exceptionally large, how are the day-to-day operations really going to affect you? How will your responsibilities be different? Because at the moment, every small business owner is an accountant, is a marketeer, is an operations director, is a supplier, a sourcer, a resourcer. But at some point, you don't want to be in charge of HR and you don't want to do your own books. Or if you do, what other skills you have to bring on board to ensure you can keep the business ticking over. And some of our thoughts were that you'd look at outsourcing some of the key functions within the business. So do outsource bookkeeping and accounts because it's such a time-consuming and costly procedure to get wrong. Warehousing is especially costly if you don't have enough kitchen space to put everything. Many companies offer a warehousing solution, and one of those is Amazon, which do FBA. And whilst it sometimes can be seen as expensive, it's still a very good route to having your products being front of mind for many consumers. And then on top of that, you can also do things like drop shipping, enabling you to sell products which you don't necessarily have to purchase in and costing you a lot of money. And also computerized. There's thousands of software solutions out there, and especially for multi-channel management and selling your items across various regions and countries. These can, rather than needing 10 of you, still just do it yourself. Then, when is it kind of the right time to expand as a business? Since the day you started trading, there was that one point, I think the first e-commerce product sold was a CD. I think it might have been a Rod Stewart CD. Really poor choice for the first e-commerce product to be sold. But ever since then, since you sell your first item, your business is growing, even if it's 1, 2, 10, or if it's 1, 10, 1,000, you're still driving that pace. But that real steady growth just brings in a lot of responsibility and sort of nervousness, especially if you're a business that at one point is selling 1,000 items a month, and then you get an amazing supermarket order for 100,000 items a month, which can really cause a massive reaction. Other things that consider are when a new competitor kind of jumps in to test the market, and they may just be testing the market, but that can cause a massive knee-jerk reaction of dropping prices or really knee-jerking either out of the market or into something else. But it's also important to remember that, you know, customer experiences and expectations change. So at the time that you pick your moment, if you've not researched your customer properly, it could be the wrong time. especially if you've got some customers who are particularly vocal on social media or other avenues. Other things that I think that are quite interesting when you're getting quite big are understanding where your sales come from. And luckily, we're moving into a digital age where you can know where nearly every single item is being sold. However, it's still quite important to say that even though you've sold a large number of items, it's important to be good with your analytics if you sell on your own website. So understanding poor performing product pages, how your customer is transacting through your website, time spent on the bounce rates, what your conversion rates are. And Google provides a fantastic free tool to do that. eBay provide a great tool as well in terms of analytics, and Amazon do provide a level of insight, but they don't want to give too much away. And it's important looking at this because in our experience when we developed the My Hermes website, it was, I think if you look on the Wayback Machine last year before we launched it, it was quite old and tired, and we refreshed it. But every month as we've gone through, we've looked at the customer journey process, no matter how small somebody is, and seeing how can we possibly make it a little bit better and can make the product stand out a little bit more, just to ensure that everybody's really, really happy and we can tell exactly how our sales are going and where they're coming from. It's also really important to know your customer. For many people, especially in the fashion retail sector, the customer demographics are so broad that you could be shooting a humongous marketing budget across huge demographics when your ideal customer could be a fantastically lovely 80-year-old lady who likes to sit there knitting, where e-commerce might not be the best place for you to sell products to her. Or it could be a young 16-year-old who is looking for the latest computer game t-shirt. But it's important to know exactly who you're selling to and why, saving yourself a considerable amount of money, but also ensuring it's really, really targeted marketing. It's also that in knowing those customers, they're not particularly loyal to your brand or service, but as I'm sure we're all aware, we've seen the stories online, customers always remember when a level of service hasn't been up to their standard. People are also really more diverse. I think thinking back to the beginning of my career, ABC segments were a huge part of every business, where today, outside of major retail brands, I'm not quite sure that segmentation really counts. There's such a huge spread in middle class that I suppose everybody has a level of disposable income and has different perceptions of what it means to be in a different segment. So it's understanding that even the youngest customer could be one of your most influential, and one of your oldest, wealthiest customers maybe the least influential. It's kind of the way the world's going at the minute. And it's important to understand on all demographics what their frustrations are and give them a really good product and service that they actually want. And in doing that, the easiest way to do that, we've done it here, but we've got an example, is to create a customer persona. So take some time out and just sit and write about who you think your customer is. So this is an example of a customer who's female. She can sort of sit and write down what they need and share pictures with her parents, pictures with her friends. So very social, very together. Gets upset if she can't get hold of a 3G mobile phone and shop online. So these kind of personas really, really help you think and refocus on who it is you're selling a product to. So in this instance, it's mobile phones, but in any instance, it could be how you sell a parcel shipping service, or how you sell t-shirts, dresses, mugs, or anything. And in doing that, getting to know your customer, you have to live their life, learn from what you see going right and going wrong with them, and then look as well a bit into the future to make sure that you understand where they're going to change and where they're going to grow, especially if you're in a slightly older demographic where your consumers are, I wouldn't say shrinking, the older demographic's getting a lot bigger, but what does that growing consumer size mean to you? One of the greatest suggestions is do start off just survey as many customers as you can. If you have email addresses and you can use plenty of software online, just try and ask 2 or 3 simple questions and then evolve those questions over time, just to ensure that you're refining your product and your understanding, and that refines your persona. One of the issues that we've seen is the difficulties of scaling. So within Hermes, we service many customers, from people who ship 1 to hundreds of millions of items a year. But within the SME channel, within the space, many people start out on eBay. It's a great place to start selling. But there are others. You can go onto Amazon, Etsy, not on the high streets if it's a unique product. You can develop your own website. You can even go bricks and mortar. When there is a slight resurgence in the high street, this is quite cool. But there's also the opportunity to start social selling. And whilst Facebook is yet to go anywhere, and 2 or 3 years ago viewed that it might be the next big thing, it probably will be at some point the place where people begin to actually purchase items and store their card details to enable that to happen. And then also do your own website. Brilliant way to sell products, really good way to get insight and start to capture the market, particularly if you're finding a gap in the market. In terms of acquiring new customers, we would suggest collecting data from emails and direct marketing. It's a brilliant way to prospect. You can go through affiliate channels. You can do a lot through pay-per-click. You can do a lot through SEO, and you can do a lot through promotion. But it's understanding that you end up having to become an expert in those areas, particularly in pay-per-click and SEO, because the amount of literature available to read is so vast that starting off with pay-per-click gets you a really nice overview of what does work for your site, what does drive your traffic. And with SEO, it's much more about the long term and how you get your digital business to thrive. And it's very often the case that Amazon and eBay will give you that initial boost to get your product off the ground. And then your SEO will give you the much more long tail on your own personal website. One example we wanted to showcase was in terms of converting customers. As I said earlier, our website launched a year ago, and we made a small amend to our website, which was to change the layout of a banner and to change the color and size of a button. And that small change had a 24.23 point change in conversion rates. I won't say what the actual conversion rates are, but they're really, really good. And it just showed that customers are more willing to convert and enter the sales process. It became a little bit less confusing, but it was understanding what the customer issues were in the funnel and in their journey that actually led to this change being effective. In terms of retention, I think to retain your customers, it's really difficult to meet their expectations. I think everybody wants to be treated like a multi-millionaire and that they are the most important customer to you at all times, even though some will only buy from you once and you'll never see them again, and some will buy from you every week, and some will buy from you only at Christmas. So I think sometimes in terms of customer retention, it's important to understand the seasonality that people might have and their own personal buying strategy. I'd also look to automate where you can. You can automate your marketing, you can automate your pay-per-click, but you can also automate your emails, you can automate your communication to make sure that you're keeping them not engaged, but up to date on your latest product. So even if they didn't purchase from you 6 months ago, you may suddenly have an item in stock that is really, really relevant. And as long as they've not unsubscribed and it's not been particularly spammy, people will stay and keep engaged on any kind of communication, especially when they like the brand. I think one of the questions brought by the member of staff here was, what are you really selling? And nobody who buys a drill really wants a drill. They want a hole. So if you want to sell drills, it's not about how big the drill is, how big the engine is. It's just how about really amazing it is at making holes. But also, nobody who wanted makeup is another example. Wanted to put paint on their face. They wanted to think that they'd look like the model in the picture. So it's really understanding what is it that you're actually selling and what is it that person wants. And is it a bit of iconography? Is it something that they think will set them apart from others? In which, in many cases of many products, it is. And I'd like to just take this point to introduce Rob from the Sheffield Mug Company to join me, just talking a little bit about how he grew his business, or is growing his business. Rob, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thanks. Thanks very much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak here. I guess I should say I kind of stumbled into this accidentally. I didn't set out to make mugs. I've worked in IT for a long time. I do various IT things like websites and social media, etc. And it evolved out of I'd put together a design to promote the local area where I live, the shops and the businesses within it. I live in Sheffield, and there's a lot of these little local areas around Sheffield which have great independent shops and are fantastic and vastly different to the chains you see in most towns and cities, and sort of little local people running these shops have done for years, etc. And I put together this design for this local area, and I wanted someone else to make a mug of it. I chatted to the shopkeepers, they loved the idea, I'd got permissions to use logos, etc. And it took many months, and I went backwards and forwards with various different mug supply companies, and they'd either stop coming back to me or they'd send me something that really wasn't good enough, because ultimately if I wanted to put something out there, I wanted it to be good quality, because essentially it was me everyone was seeing all the time, my name somehow, and it just wasn't working. And I remember having a conversation with one of the local shopkeepers and just saying, I don't think it's not going to work, because I just can't get this done. And we talked for ages just outside his shop, and he at one point he even offered me the money to buy the equipment myself. I mean, as it turned out, it was just really generous of him, and I didn't take him up on that, but it got me thinking, and I sort of sat down and did some sums and just sort of worked out exactly how many I'd have to sell if I bought the various bits of equipment just to get the money back, and that's all I thought about at that particular time. And the idea was these mugs were going to be sold in these local shops in this area, and that's what happened. And it went really well. We got lots of publicity, got in the local media, and so on. And obviously I had this equipment. It seemed pointless not to use it. It had paid for itself just by doing this one mug design. There are lots of these other areas in Sheffield, so I started to expand into these other areas, and then that was getting me noticed by other people who were aware of the fact I could potentially make them mugs. So naturally, one of the things I did right from the beginning was create my own website and put them online for people to buy, because there's a great connection with people from the areas they were born in, and could buy them from further afield. So I did that, and I originally put them on Folksy, which was originally set in Sheffield, started in Sheffield, also based in London too. And they did okay. And one day I was just sort of having a look for my stuff. There was a few designs that got on there, and I couldn't actually find my stuff myself by searching on it. And I thought, well, that's obviously quite a problem, isn't it? If I can't find it, how's anybody else going to find it? And I don't know quite what the issue was, whether it was something with their search engine or not, but I needed to put them somewhere where people could find them, obviously. And I was aware of Etsy too. Etsy's a US-based system, but it's much bigger and also international. So I just moved them over there, and ever since it has been much better. I've obviously expanded into many other designs. I do work for all sorts of other people, all sorts of artists. I do them for them. I do work for shops in Sheffield, and my work has sold around the world now. So, and I think that has helped by moving on to Etsy. In terms of the branding, I knew from the beginning that I needed to. Sorry for the interruption. I've got my son trying to ring me on the phone. I knew I needed to do the branding myself, so people would recognise what it was. And my original designs had the web address of my site on it, so that kind of worked there. But I didn't really have a great logo, and I wasn't necessarily utilising all the space potentially. In the early days, I chatted to one of the local shopkeepers, and he said, why don't you print something on the bottom of the mugs? Because when two people tip them up to drink from them, uh, they'll see what's on the bottom of the mug, as in, he said that was in the usual suspects. And I said, that's a fantastic idea, but I can't actually print on the bottom of the mugs. So, and I had in my mind about getting some stickers, but when you first start, everything's an expense, and it's just something you have to think, right, well, I've got to spend that much on getting so many labels, that adds extra to my cost. And in the big picture of things, it doesn't make a big deal, doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does when you're first starting. Every little thing adds up, and you can sort of get a bit carried away, and then you've suddenly got to make so many more mugs, for example, just to break even and stuff. And eventually I got to the stage where I could design some labels, and they now stick on the bottom of my mugs. My mugs, they can go through the dishwasher and so can these stickers. It's just a little round sticker that sits on the bottom. It's got my email address, my web address, the name of the company, and it's got a QR code in the middle, which I don't think many people will scan it, but it's got the potential to do stuff in there in the future because it's a responsive one. I could change. At the moment, it just links to the website. I could change if it linked to, say, for example, a special offer thing. But I haven't really done much there. I know a lot more I could do on the branding side of things. At the moment, I've just literally designed some Christmas labels, which are tying to the mugs along with a chocolate coin with all the mugs I'm sending out at the moment. There's more besides, but it's just sort of getting to that stage. But I guess one of the most important things for me is I send a lot of my mugs out obviously via my Hermes, and they're all breakable. It's not covered by their system, as I don't think it is by Royal Mail either. So it needed to be something where I could send them out and didn't break, because obviously if it breaks, it's no good. The customer's not going to be happy to receive a broken mug when they get there. And yes, I can replace it, but obviously, it sort of makes you think, oh right, that wasn't great, was it? Even if they do replace it and stuff, and every single one that gets broken obviously costs me money. So I mean, I looked around at the different options. Generally, it boils down to either a box or a polystyrene container for mugs. Polystyrene containers are bulky for a start, so having 100 of them takes a whole lot more than the 100 collapsible boxes that you assemble yourself. But so I eventually went down the route of the boxes. The mugs themselves are wrapped in a small plastic bag, then covered in bubble wrap, and then put inside a box and it fits fairly snugly. They have to go in a certain way that's fairly snugly so they don't move around. So when it's all sealed up, I can shake it and it's not moving. If it's going to move, it's much more likely to break. They're thick enough that if they get dropped, they're going to survive. And I've been going for just over a year now, and in that time I've only had 2 mugs break. So obviously there's something something's okay with them, and one of those was sent to Los Angeles, so that's obviously all right. In terms of expansion, I mean, as I said, I started this accidentally. I didn't go through many of the steps I already mentioned about planning and all sorts of that. I just sort of something that's evolved out of some other things I do. I have in mind a number of other things that I can move into and hopefully will move into. I guess now is one of my busiest times of the year because I do a lot of stock for shops, for other artists, and they all want to stock up now for Christmas. So I don't really have a massive amount of time to be trying stuff. I mean, I've done a few bits and bobs with things like money boxes, which are very much like a mug. They're very similar shape, very similar size and stuff. And I have got an order that's going out this week with some of them, and I've got a design of one of mine with them. But obviously, it makes sense to expand into things like water bottles, travel mugs. I've got the equipment. It's not too difficult to sort of move on from that. And some of my own designs as well originate from either digital designs I've created directly on the computer or from original photos of mine I've taken and then digitally enhanced. And I was just sort of started looking at, and I have a number of prints that I also do as well, which are just sort of beginning to get going as well. So I think that's probably about enough from me. I'll hand you back to Owen now.
Thank you, Rob. I think thank you very much. It just shows how one small idea can expand and kind of snowball into a growing business really quickly. I think some of the other things that we were really looking forward to covering were some delivery stuff. So I think looking back on in my Hermes, within Hermes, I think there are sometimes some common delivery mistakes. I think consumers really want options. I think I wouldn't say people dislike paying for standard shipping, but I think they dislike seeing the cost of shipping being displayed. So even if it's rolled into the cost of an item, I experimented this with a fashion brand that I worked on. We were selling both on our retail site and on eBay. And within eBay, sales weren't spectacular, but the delivery price for the product was exactly the same. And within eBay, I then amalgamated the delivery cost into the cost of the product and made it look as though it was free delivery, and there was price parity across every single channel, Amazon, eBay, and the website. There was no difference, except on eBay, it was just the product price was a little bit higher, and sales instantly lifted. I think eBay was contributing hundreds of thousands of pounds annually to the business, and it simply changed because of bundling in the price, and that seems to be a real perception issue, which I think was started on eBay, but it's kind of grown across every website. Most fashion websites will give you free shipping if you purchase over a certain amount, so I think it's important to look at where your capacity is, either for rolling the price into the products, which I think you can do with many multi-channel software platforms, or where you can try and reduce it as much as possible by using a service that customers are happy to receive. I think the fewer and fewer shipping options that you're seeing at the minute is really difficult for consumers, especially there's some people out there who will pay quite a lot for more. And I think you're starting to see the emergence of same-day delivery. And even though it's not a spectacularly huge market at the minute, it's quite interesting that I think you've got companies like Shuttle, which is purchased by eBay, Uber, who are currently testing it in North America, offering people to have same-day delivery. And whilst I think in the UK, next day or click and collect is an absolutely perfect option, it's just trying to take advantage of all those options with every carrier. And if you have the ability to offer those options, that's fantastic. At Hermes, we do next day, and it's something that we hope to roll out to SME shippers, hopefully sometimes later in next year. Our current service is a 2-day service, and we also are hoping to offer a click and collect service with our growing network of parcel shops. So within that service, you'd hopefully have a massive opportunity to showcase to your consumers the ability to use different options, even with just one carrier. Other things that do happen is people have a fantastic product and the packaging isn't brilliant. We have a customer of ours who ships beer through our network, and much like the mugs, isn't covered, but breakages are actually exceptionally low because of the amount of time spent packing the item and making sure it's perfect, because things will get stacked on top of each other. There is always a time when somebody will, I wouldn't want to say mishandle, but something will move within a cage, and it's really ensured that the materials are of high quality, that the cardboard box or any packaging is not exceptionally strong, but if it's double-walled corrugated cardboard, it's brilliant. If there's multiple items in a box, if it can be divided and also have cushioning material around the outside, this enables the product to not only arrive in pristine condition, and that's what consumers want. It just means that if there's any bumps in the road when it's on the back of a trailer, it'll be perfectly fine. One of the other things that we see within the network is reuse of boxes, which is perfect for recycling, but sometimes if it has 2 or 3 labels from different carriers still on the box, then that can get quite confusing as to where it's going to go, especially if you've got automated scanners trying to push it through the system, which I think ourselves and the Royal Mail do in our respective hubs. And I think especially with a small item, USB sticks or pens, knives, cutlery, anything like that, little jiffy bags are fantastic because it enables an item to be bulky enough to be handled correctly, go through a sorter, not get lost or fall over anywhere. But it helps you to kind of look at your product, look at your packaging, test to see if it works, learn from any problems, and then improve it, and then carry on testing, learning, improving. And obviously, the fewer breakages, the fewer delays, the more likely the end customer is going to be really, really happy. I think a great example on Amazon, there's a gentleman who sells screen protectors for mobile phones, and he isn't the cheapest. I can't remember his business name. I'll try and find it. He isn't the cheapest in the market by a stretch. However, his packaging and his materials are what make him a premium seller on Amazon, and he ends up in the buy box all the time. Even though Amazon undercut him on price, he still beats them on customer service, which for somebody going against Amazon is absolutely ridiculous, but it's something they hold up as an example all the time. Other things that are really, really important, especially for us as a delivery company, is getting the address right. I think stepping through the process, the minute you send that parcel out the door is the last time you'll see it. And it's not the ideal time to look at the box and go, is that address the right address? So trying to validate it really, really early on and check any questions, but it also ensures speed of service between you and the recipient, because the last thing that you want is a parcel to be halfway to Edinburgh and it should be going to Glasgow, and the customer's then going, I haven't got my item a week later, which causes confusion and returns, and it needs to be relabeled. But it's really, really important to get that address right the first time. And it'll save you a huge headache. Returns is I think the biggest e-commerce headache that's only getting bigger. Recently there was new European legislation added in that any item sold by anybody online is eligible for returns. So if you are selling 2 things a week on eBay and somebody wants to return it to you up to 14 days after they received it, then now they're eligible to do that. And it's just a constant expansion of the distance selling regulations. And it's really important to be in compliance, but also know how you're going to get an item back to you when you've shipped it out, and to have a really good process of accepting returns and ensure people have the information to make that happen really quickly. Because if you have a really popular product, the last thing you want is to have it in somebody's hands who wants to send it back to you. But you can get your stock back quickly, and you can turn it around a lot quicker. I think in sending your parcels, is the price right? Is a very common question asked. I think we are one of the cheapest delivery providers. We've got the best price option in the market at the moment. But it depends what you're shipping. I think if you're selling soft goods or goods that can take some time to get there, fantastic. If you're selling an iPad, then it's highly recommended to invest in a secure shipping solution where you know you've handed it over to FedEx as an example, and it's definitely appeared in the hands of the person who purchased it from you. I think always look for tracking. It's great for customers. I think they want to know where their item's going to be, and it stops them chasing you, stops them asking you questions about where their item is all the time. And flexibility, and for example, with ourselves, we have the ability to go from you can drop it at our parcel shop. We can arrange a van collection if you get suddenly excessive volumes that you can't handle putting into a shop, or we also have the flexibility on the other end with our customers, where the courier will try them 2 or 3 times, because the last thing we want is to send an item back to you, so we'll hold on to it. And this is really important for a lot of our end customers, where their couriers, they're quite friendly with each other. So it could be that they're really, really good friends, and the courier will know them, and if they're not in, we'll know they're not in, and we'll bring them up later on in the evening and deliver it to them then, or arrange to do it the following day when they are at home. customer service is also key. I think within the parcels industry, there's very few companies who actually have a customer service team. And if you do run into problems, we hope nobody ever does. It's great to be able to pick up the phone and know we've got a specific team, and we've got a specific SME customer service team as well, who deal with people who ship large volumes and could be sending thousands of items, but just want to query one or two, and it enables them to be fast-tracked through our customer service team. It's also important, I think, to learn as you go. So this is just to close on. So whilst you are building this amazing business and starting on stuff, taking time out to read and to kind of pull together some really good ideas. A great book for this is Business Model Generation. And I think Apple use this to model how they're going to charge for some products. But just as one person sitting in a room with some post-it notes, it's just allows you to break down all the individual areas that give you profit and revenue for your business. And also the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's been around for a while, but reading it from end to end just gives you great tips on how to work or not in your business, and really helps you understand some mistakes that can be made and how to skip over them and swiftly move on. And then finally, my recommendation of blogs. Internet Retailing and eSeller are great. E-Consultancy blog is there's a subscription service which is quite high, but the blog is free and it gives you a wealth of insights. And other search engine relevant ones, particularly if you're building your own website and you're trying to know which route is the correct route in terms of content. And then most importantly, enjoy yourself building a business. And that's everything from me. Thanks for listening.
Great stuff, Owen and Rob. Thank you very much for that canter through how to grow your business, and particularly how to package and send stuff. All 5 things. We've got a few questions that have come in, so we'll just trot through those. One of the questions that's come in is, how can you use packaging? What options are there to use packaging to kind of reflect your brand, to actually sort of make the package look attractive, and is that important?
I think good packaging is important. I think it's important not to make packaging too attractive. So there was a point, maybe 5 or so years ago, maybe a little bit longer, where the majority of electronics are now sent in black plain plastic packaging, which is tamper-proof. And whilst 99% of people are exceptionally honest and brilliant, I think it's really important to say the packaging should be sturdy. It's when you open it, it should look amazing. So Amazon do wrap theirs and brand it and says Amazon, but there's actually inbuilt security features into the packaging where you know if it's been tampered with or not. And rather investing in really expensive packaging, it's ideal to go with something that's sturdy, secure, clean, and well presented. And I think the other thing to remember is the packaging only lasts for a couple of seconds when it comes into somebody's hands. It's what happens when they rip the box open or the packet open. A really well presented product that's, when been packaged well, is much better.
Right, excellent stuff. And you mentioned in one of your slides about testing out different types of packaging and what works. Particularly, you were talking about small items and putting them in jiffy bags. How do you sort of actually go about testing it out? Just send things out in different packages and see what happens?
If you're like Rob and you're sending out mugs, I would always do a drop test and see how confident you are of it falling from waist height. So if you have a mug and you're really, really confident you've packaged it well, or if you've got anything that might be crackable or breakable, if you think it can take a knock, then try it yourself with a test product or something that you're not too worried about breaking, but just make sure you feel that it's quite sturdy when it lands and it's been packaged well. Other routes are, you can send out test items. So for example, send a couple to yourself and see what kind of condition they arrive in. So if you're sending out a jiffy bag, send someone on a circular route and it'll just come back to you, and then you get to understand how long it takes and what it looks like at the end delivery experience.
Okay. Any way of testing whether things will go through your sort of auto scanners or post office auto scanners without causing problems, or do you just have to try it and see what happens?
I think in our hubs it's automatic. In our depots, it's a mixture of manual and automatic. So for both ourselves and the post office, if it will be red, we'll still process it. We can see it. I think for ourselves, I think if you're printing it out and the barcode, you can see it. That's great. But the actual text that's on the label. So I think unlike the Royal Mail, most delivery companies, if you printed out the label, and we don't have to read your handwriting, which is fantastic because mine's illegible. But it's the kind of routing information because it tells us where it's going to go. So as long as that's crystal clear, we're able to ensure that it gets routed manually anyway, particularly if it's a slightly bigger box.
Right. Okay, lovely. And one more that's just popped up. This is quite specific. Does My Hermes have any plans to integrate with any international carriers?
Yes. So we're in the process of currently testing our European network. So we are Hermes is quite a big European delivery carrier. So at the moment we're testing about 19 countries, and I think we're hoping to go up to about 30. And the My Hermes platform, we're looking at trying to do that solution as well this year. We are looking at maybe perhaps later in the year or into 2016 how we could do international in terms of global, but the European solution is the one that we're looking at the minute.
Okay, great. And sticking with the sort of overseas element, someone's just asked, where can I find information on shipping abroad?
You can, a company which is actually a reseller of ours, a company called Parcels to Go, have quite a lot of information on their website about shipping abroad, and in that I think when you are shipping items abroad, do be careful because it can be quite perilous. I think shipping into countries like Brazil and the United States, if you're a big corporate company, can seem quite easy. But if you make a mistake, the mistake can be really expensive. I think the Brazilian government charged something like $1,000 if something goes wrong, and they'll just hold the item and won't send it back to you, but they'll send you a bill. And the same goes for the United States. I think if you are shipping abroad, I would stick with English-speaking countries first to get used to it, especially North America and Australia, because they've got really well-written instructions. And countries that are emerging, especially BRIC nations, I think just really the rules on them are different for every single one. So stepping through the process for every single one can be quite laborious.
Okay, great. And we have one last thing, which is not actually a. Oh no, hang on, they're coming in thick and fast. Right. So, question here: following up on the plan to provide a European service soon, will it be cost competitive with Royal Mail, and will it be tracked as standard as UK shipments are?
I can't discuss what the pricing will be. I'm sure it'll be as cost competitive as we are now, and yes, it will be tracked end to end.
Right, lovely. And the last one we've got here is, like I say, not a question but a comment. One of your customers who's listening in saying, very happy with our UK deliveries with you. Currently 50% go via My Hermes. So there you go, a ringing endorsement from one of the attendees there about your service.